Hello everybody and welcome to the New Southern Workshop. My name is Jack Roberts. I've got some great things going on here. Let's get started. Well, I've got a new project for my wife. She wants a cornice for the living room windows. So I sketched one up in SketchUp, of course. Made some measurements, printed them all out, and I'm ready to get started.
It's always a good idea to square up the end of a new piece of lumber. It's rarely perfect from the big box store.
So it looks like I'm going to be able to get two pieces of my end blocks from this. So let's just measure it out. 2 1/4 inches. Place the square, mark a line. Measure twice. I'm going to put a spring clamp down here as my stop block so I can cut 2 of them without having to measure the second one. So I'm right on the line to the right of it. There's a stick to keep my fingers out of the way. Double check, ready to go.
The next step was to glue up the side pieces. I used glue and clamps here. I also used a scrap piece of wood that I knew was square to align the sides. I completely forgot that I have a corner clamping jig that would have been perfect for this application. My plan for mounting the cornice included a French cleat. I cut a 1x in half along the length of the board while the saw blade was tilted to 45 degrees. Half of this I mounted to the top back of the cornice assembly. The other half I would later mount to the wall above the window. This created an easy way to hang the cornice and allow a little bit of adjustment. This is my first attempt at cutting the crown molding. I tried it on the radial arm saw as though it were a miter box. It's not so easy to make this cut on the radial arm saw while trying to hold down the crown molding at the proper angle. It's even worse when you're trying to cut the other end, because when the crown molding is standing up at the proper angle, the radial arm saw hits the wood, keeping you from completing the cut. The best way to do this is to lay the crown molding face down on the table and adjust the miter angle and bevel angle of the saw to make the cut. I searched the internet to find out how to calculate the proper angles for the miter and bevel, and I found several crown molding angle calculators. I also discovered that 38 degrees is the most common spring angle. The spring angle is the angle at which the crown molding leans away from a wall. I have a 90-degree corner around which I am attaching the crown molding. That makes the miter angle 31.6 degrees and the bevel angle is 33.86 degrees. Once the molding was cut, I began to glue it to the cornice box. Even though it appears I hit the mark with gluing the crown molding, I somehow missed the perfect mark and the crown molding wound up being about a ½ inch too far to the top of the cornice box. I also added brads to hold down the crown molding in place while the glue dried. I cut the side pieces of crown molding, gluing them on and tacking them in place with brads. To add a bit of detail to the bottom edge of the cornice, I glued and tacked on a strip of cove molding. This also wrapped around the sides of the cornice box. It did not seem quite as tight as I thought it should have been, so I attempted to add a few clamps to it. Alright, here I am to dry fit this over the window. This is a beautiful cornice I've made for my lovely wife. So, let's see what it looks like. And it's going to sit just about like that. Okay, so I'm going to hang this with a French cleat system here. So I've cut this one by at a diagonal, and it will go up here on the wall with the slant going toward the wall. And then this part will sit right down on top of it.
There is a trim piece made of a 1x2 on which I routed a round-over edge. This was attached across the bottom of the cornice box to give the cove molding a more substantial appearance. Another similar strip was added to the top, on which I routed a Roman ogee profile. It rests on the top of the crown molding to give it a little bit more profile. Now time to finish up. I started with 2 coats of primer to prevent the wood grain from showing through the paint. On top of that, I painted 2 coats of a white semi-gloss latex enamel paint. Finally, time for installation. As I mentioned before, I used a French cleat to mount the cornice above the windows. This was very easy. I leveled the bottom piece of the French cleat at the top of the windows. I pre-drilled the holes and then used sheetrock screws to attach it to the wall. It was a little hard getting the screws to go through the sheetrock in the metal corner bead that's just above the window. If I had made the cornice a couple of inches taller, I would have mounted the French cleat a little higher on the wall, and I would have avoided trying to drive a screw through the metal corner brace. I think it all turned out looking great. Here's a close-up look at the details of all the different moldings. Some moldings were purchased and a couple of them I made with the router. Well, that's all for this project. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Jack Roberts and I will see you next time on the New Southern Workshop. Don't forget to subscribe.